Episode number 83 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. My guest today is Melanie Legend. Melanie started her journey at Western University, where she started her first degree of honors specialization in health science with biology. After graduation, Melanie attended the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland for 2.5 years, at which point she had what some may call a spiritual awakening. Shortly after this shift in perspective, Melanie decided to leave medical school and travel home. In 2018, she started her Naturopathic Medicine Doctorate degree at CCNM. Currently, she is in her second year. Melanie has always been passionate about women's health, especially after navigating her own journey through PCOS. Her career is now geared towards infertility, pre- and postnatal treatments, with a drive to be of service to women and children. After working with multiple clients on hormone regulation and fertility, Melanie found her passion in redefining what fertility treatment looks like. Encompassing a mind-body-soul approach, Melanie aims to teach women how to become empowered about their health, curious about their hormones, and most importantly, healed from the origin. Melanie is the author of The Miracle Mind, The Power of Self-Healing. She is also host of the Get Seriously Fertile podcast. So welcome to the podcast, Melanie.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, me too. So we just finished our own podcast, or your podcast yesterday, and we were talking, and I was intrigued by just getting to know you. We totally connected and have a lot of things in common, and I was really excited to have you on my podcast. And I wanted to see if you could share your background, how you got into natural medicine, what you're doing now, what your background is, because I know you have a bunch of different variety of degrees and backgrounds. So would love to hear more about that.
Absolutely. So number one, again, thank you for having me on the show. I mean, I love how it's just nice to connect with people in this community, especially when you're so in alignment with people. So I love the fact that we do this. So just in terms of, I guess, where I kind of started out, it has been a long journey. So I started my degree at university, just bachelor's of health science with a degree in biology as well. And I always knew that I wanted to do medicine. It was always something that kind of pulled towards me. And I always wanted to be a doctor. It was from high school onwards. That was the path. And it's really funny because I kind of had this essential 360 change where the person who I was during university is not even wouldn't even recognize the person that I am today, which is so crazy because a lot of people, they're like, oh, you changed. And I'm like, I can't explain it other than saying a spiritual awakening. And some people understand that and some people don't. But essentially that's kind of what happened. So I was so heart set on Western medicine. I went there for 2.5 years. I was at the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, but I was at the Bahrain campus, so I got that kind of taste of the Middle Eastern experience as well. And then that's kind of what opened my eyes, I guess, to the world around me, because I was in this new environment. I was surrounded by a different culture. I was away from my family, and it just made me think a little bit more, I guess, outside of myself, where I had really been in that bubble of self. And then it was challenged by the environment that I was in. And 2.5 years into that, that's kind of when I had, I guess I termed my spiritual awakening. And that was when, I guess, herbs and stuff started coming into my life. And it was a very interesting experience because I started learning about Ayurvedic. I started seeing energy medicine. I got into the chakras. And then it really became, I guess, a troublesome thing that I had to work through, because it was like, do I stay on this path or do I follow this new path that I feel really in alignment with? And that was definitely one of the hardest decisions that I think I had to make in that transition. Now I look back at it and I'm glad I made that decision. So now I'm in naturopathic medicine. I'm 2 years into that. And I mean, every day is different. I'm always changing, always growing, which is awesome.
That's great. And I know that a lot of, and I don't know what it's like in Canada, but I know a lot of the programs combine TCM as well.
They do. Yeah. So actually, in between that, when I was leaving Western medicine, I wasn't quite sure what modality of natural medicine I wanted to get into. So I went to traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture for a year. And that was a really, really cool experience for me because I was introduced to Qigong and Tai Chi and acupuncture and all these things that were quite foreign to me at the time. And then I found naturopathic medicine that encompassed that, but also had the herbs and the homeopathy and all of that other kind of stuff. So that's kind of how I transitioned into that, which was really cool.
That's very cool. And I know that you have a love for fertility and you're working a lot with fertility clients. So can you share about that as well and how you got into it?
Yeah, so it's funny because I actually had a really strong passion before. So those of the people who have followed me, I was actually in mental health for 7 or 8 years. And my background in mental health was I worked in a youth home. I did a lot of NLP coaching,
Oh,
all of
that's
that
very
kind of.
cool. Right, because you also have a background in hypnosis. So share
Yeah.
everything. Don't leave one stone unturned. I want to know everything.
Okay. So yeah, so I guess that was my own personal, like I really like the story of the wounded healer, right? Like I really, my life has been going through these experiences and learning how to heal them and then being able to give that to other people. So my passion for mental health really did come from that personal kind of experience of I was put on SSRIs, which is a Western pharmaceutical, and then it really made my body go weird. Like it was not working in the sense that it was making things worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I explored into natural medicine. I was like, there's got to be something out here that isn't making me feel worse and that's going to really help me get to the root. Like I just felt like there was that intuitive nudge that there's something else beyond here. And it's funny because at the same time that I was in that transition of the mental health in my life, I was also going through my own personal OBGYN reproductive issues. So that's when I had PCOS diagnosed at age 16, and they put me on the contraceptive pill. And I was on the contraceptive pill and I had these horrible, horrible menstrual cramps. And to the point where I was taking pain medication because I was on the pill to
Wow,
regulate
that's
it.
crazy. Because
Right?
usually people get prescribed for cramps.
Right, exactly. So, and it's funny because these were like, I swear to God, these were horse pills. They were like these huge pills. I remember them. They
Wow.
were yellow and blue, and I had to go and get a prescription. I don't even know what they were because like I didn't check that when I was taking them, but I just remember they took the pain against like instantly, and the pain was excruciating. It was like I couldn't go to school. I was in bed all day, like it was just tearing, ripping, like awful pain. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about taking a pill on top of a pill to fix this problem. Like it didn't seem right to me.
Yeah.
So that's, again, I went to natural medicine to try and kind of figure out my own solution. And that was kind of the pathway there because I ended up going into homeopathy, which I didn't even know at the time what that was. And I didn't even know I was doing it, to be honest. I just knew that there was a natural practitioner that specialized in fertility medicine. And within like the first couple of days of me taking the remedy, she got my period back
Oh,
naturally,
wow, it's amazing.
which shocked me. So I was like, okay, clearly there's something here that like we're not fully understanding.
Yeah.
So then I started reading a whole bunch of books and I got into supplementing myself. And then I managed to regulate my period naturally from herbs. And I was like, okay, clearly here is another layer. And then it was funny because while that was going on, there was also the emotional side of things. And I noticed that my very emotional well-being was influencing my reproductive pattern.
Yeah.
It was like that self kind of regulation. I was like, okay, I have PCOS, but I also have severe anxiety and depression. And when my PCOS accelerates, so does my anxiety and depression. And when my anxiety and depression accelerates, so does my PCOS. So I'm like, there's got to be something here that I'm not physically touching, that I'm not like, I can't supplement. There's something that I have to go deeper on.
Yeah.
And that's when I got into the chakra work. And the chakra work actually brought me to frequencies and hypnosis. And then that's when that portal kind of opened, where I was like, I need to learn more about the subconscious mind and how that's actually influencing my physical body.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and it really does, sometimes it does find you when you're more aware and you're noticing and mindful of what's going on in your body. And I always say the clues are always there. And you may pick them up much later, but when you do finally figure out the clues, you look back and you're like, oh my God, it's always been there. You always get these clues, and you get these like little signposts and different things that guide you like a compass. So it's kind of interesting how that is. And I do find that many healers, or at least really passionate healers, started out as patients. And yeah, and then you really understand the medicine through being a patient, through going through it yourself. And of course, it really intrigues you to continue because it's happened to you, and you want to, you were so influenced by it and healed by it or helped by it that you want to continue that forward. So how did you get into fertility?
Yeah, so like I said, I was 7 years into mental health. And then I just hit a wall where it was like, I can help people. And mental health, it's a very draining industry, especially the way that Western society has kind of developed it. And it was draining me mentally, emotionally. And then that was really kind of where my self-care pivot kind of happened, because it was like, I can help people, but I can't help people when I'm not doing well myself. And I felt like I was constantly being drained in a sense that I couldn't show up for the people that I was trying to help. And it was really like this parallel road. It's like you can do really well in two things. Like you can stay in mental health and you can do really well and you can help people, or you can go to fertility and really, really help people in that, because you both have journeys that are relevant to both sides. And spirit, the way that, I mean, I'm very into the universe and signs, as you said, and listening to them. And I had a part-time job at a health food store at one point. And the universe kept sending me like customers that were, suffering from PCOS and endometriosis and fibroids. And it was like every person that walked in the door had some hormonal fertility issue.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, so like clearly, I hear you, I get it. And I did feel like it was going to be the better kind of long-term thing that I was going to be most passionate about, because I always wanted to work with children and I always wanted to work with women in that bond. And it was something that I could really bring full circle, because I feel like fertility itself, it's such a delicate thing.
It is. It's like a flower.
It is. And it's so beautiful. But I think that the industry is so new that so many people are coming out about it, and there's still a little bit of taboo, and there's still a lot of negativity in terms of how we view it. And because it is sensitive, it's not wrong to feel that, but I just feel like there's that opportunity there to change how we look at it. And look at it as the bulb to the kind of like blossoming flower, right? And then encompass all of these really important modalities, such as the mind, the physical, the spiritual, that really is healing. And I think that's what that industry needs to really move forward. And I think one of the things too that really struck me was the amount of research that is so disempowering. Like when I had PCOS, they told me I wasn't going to be pregnant. Like I wasn't going to be able to have kids at age 16. And I was like, you're telling me that I'm never going to be able to have my own period, and I'm never going to be able to have kids. And I'm like, I was in high school. I was like,
that is, to me, that's a sin.
And it was just like, I was staring at my doctor, and my dad was there, and my mom was there. And I was like, what? Like, this doesn't make sense to me. So then, I mean, like, and that happens all the time. Like, you see
all the time.
Yeah, if we were told, like,
it pisses me off.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, like I can't stand for that kind of disempowering information.
I
Like, yeah,
agree.
it sucks, but there's always a way out. And I feel like medicine needs to change. And I feel like that's part of my mission, is to be a part of that change.
Yeah,
And
and I just I'm with you on that. I just feel like there should be a little bit more restraint in the diagnosis, because that's just one perspective of looking at the body. It's one perspective of health. And even we know as Chinese medicine practitioners that we don't see the full spectrum. Like everybody has their own specialty in
Mhm.
medicine. And so if somebody's having severe allergies or severe infection, they go to the ER and get treated with Western medicine. Everybody has their gifts. Every single part of the medicine has their own gifts and their own talents and their own specialized abilities. But I think when we make these grand judgments, just it's kind of like a label that's so all-encompassing and so definitively, it's so damaging. I mean, the fact is, many people who have had PCOS have gotten pregnant. So where is this guy coming from? I don't understand how people could just make that conclusion. I mean, maybe back then it was different or they saw things differently, but it boggles my mind. I don't understand why people would do that, because you and I both know that as soon as an authority figure tells a person something, it's like a hypnosis hex
100%.
is put on them.
I know. And I mean, that's the scary part, right? Like, it's like, I mean, to me, it's one of the greatest blessings, because I wouldn't have gone into hypnosis. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have gone into EFT. I wouldn't have gone into the subconscious mind
Mm-hmm.
if that wasn't something that was so deep.
Yeah.
But it's knowing, and I think it's our job to, I mean, talk about how deep those things can go.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And like, as soon as somebody says that to you, it's like, okay, that does become your story. And that's something that I fight to in the community, is that it's really easy to identify with a story because you're surrounded by a new community.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a bad thing. It's great to have support, but it's when infertility becomes your new identity
Mm-hmm.
that it becomes a layer again of the subconscious mind, because you then identify yourself as somebody who is infertile.
Yeah.
And it's breaking that chain of thought to then accept a baby into your life. Because I mean, we can go into the spiritual realm of this too, in manifestation. Whatever you think, whatever you put out there is what you receive. So if you're constantly saying you're infertile, that's the energy you're putting out, right?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is we had this conversation. You actually brought something up really interesting yesterday, is that our subconscious mind picks up on everything. Mm-hmm. And then our conscious mind just tends to focus on a certain few things, and that's habitual.
Yeah.
And that becomes our reality, ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like there's so many women out there that, especially with women that I work with, and I see it's like the constant disbelief in themselves. It's the willpower issues. It's all the solar plexus stuff, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the body is defective. And this brings me into a lot of the autoimmune stuff. Whenever they have fibroids or fibromyalgia or endometriosis or Hashimoto's, they think it's them. It's that story of like, my body is against me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about flipping that story into something that's more empowering. Like, your body's trying to help you.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't have the tools.
Right.
We're working with a practitioner that you believe in, and we talked about this yesterday, someone that you align with,
Mm-hmm.
that can help give you those tools so that you can get where you need to go.
So when you have somebody that you start to work with, like, where do you begin? Like, what's your first step to get started with them? And then how do you progress in your catering their specific either mindset or hypnosis?
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody generally has an initial consultation. I do something very unique, and we talked about intuitive medicine yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I will look at the person's name, and I will feel energy or whatever, and I will write down where I feel their emotions are, where I feel, what herbs, whatever kind of comes to mind. And I just make a general kind of note of that stuff.
So this is before you even talk to them?
Before I even talk to them.
That's
I just
cool.
look at their name, I
Yeah.
look at their picture, and then I just write down whatever I intuitively feel this person is going through. Then I will have the consultation with them and I will go through everything. So I do a standard kind of patient history, medical history with family, occupation, just everything, a very detailed 45-minute history of what's going on. Then I will pair what I think with what I see. And usually it's bang on. And I will tell the person when I'm doing this with them, I will say, okay, this is what I picked up on. Can you agree with this emotion? Can you agree with what's going on? Is there an issue with, I picked up on an old relationship where you're quite abused? Is this something that you resonate with? And then that's where I will pair those. And then I will take that and I will formulate a supplement, physical kind of detox program with whatever supplements I need them to support. And then we will follow up with emotional consult. So it will be whatever emotions came up there in accordance with what they're currently on. And that'll be in like week phases. So the first week will be that more physical kind of concepts. And then the second week will be more of the emotional. And then the third week will be more of the spiritual. Sometimes I integrate self-Reiki and that kind of stuff.
And also talk about the past life hypnosis.
Yeah. So this was actually, it's funny because I never in a million gnosis. And it was something that actually kind of happened by accident. So I was into meditation and I found that when I was able to bring my clients into this meditative state, that I was able to actually access information from the subconscious mind. And that was through a lot of reading on the subconscious mind, a lot of videos, Gabor Mate, if you know the psychologist. So anyway, so I was working in a meditative state and I was just kind of accessing the subconscious mind through imagery. And one of the clients that I was working with, this was actually a mental health client. I ended up bringing him into a state of trance where his essential higher self or past life came in. And it shocked him and it shocked both of me because that wasn't the intention of the session. It's just what came forward. And we ended up learning that he was a soldier and that he had died all of a sudden. And that was what was carrying into this lifetime. And there was all of these things that the soul was telling us through the past life hypnosis. And that's when I started to realize that there was something else here that I was missing. And that's when my intuition actually came up a level as well, because I do Reiki, and that's something that I do on certain clients, depending on, their comfort level, whether they feel like they resonate with it. But now that will come through on the Reiki as well. So if I'm touching a certain area, they'll be like, okay, I feel like there was a childhood wound, potentially in a past life on your ovaries, something happened here, a disconnect with mother. And then that's kind of how that developed. So it's been very interesting. And with hypnosis, I'm still an amateur by any means. I feel like there's always stuff to learn, but that just showed me there was another layer there.
Yeah, definitely. Have you ever read the book Energy Medicine by Jill Blakeway?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you would love it. It's so good. Yeah, she's amazing. I just actually recently had her on. Love her. I instantly loved her. It's just this weirdest thing. And she just has such an essence of love. And she's worked with Chinese medicine for many years. And she wrote a book called Energy Medicine, which was, over the years, she just felt that she, through her intention, she'd feel almost like energy and also intuitive. And what was amazing about this book, there's so many amazing things, is that she bridges the science to intuition and connection and healing and energy medicine also as a whole. And she said that they did, I believe it was an EEG on her and the patient, and they did some kind of, I don't know all the scientific terms, but they did some kind of study where they noticed that she would have her heart and brain would sync up,
Yeah.
And the patient's heart and brain would also sync up, and they would sync up together. It's just
Interesting.
amazing. And so she talks about energy medicine and how she would feel things with the palms of her hand and be drawn.
Yeah.
And every so often, I'll also lay my hands and do Reiki. And every once in a while, I'll be called to do that with patients, even though that's not something I typically do. So
Yeah.
it's kind of an interesting thing. But she describes it so beautifully. And, with studies and research that was done as she was going. And she also went and spoke to different healers throughout the world, and was
Cool. I
just
would love to read.
so intriguing, so intriguing. So I highly recommend reading that and also reaching out to her for your
100.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. There's actually, you know what that reminds me of? Have you heard of Heart Math?
No, that's
So
great.
the Heart Math Institute,
Uh-huh.
I'm always trying to find tangible research that explains the phenomena that we experience.
Mm-hmm.
And Heart Math, they work on essentially the mathematics of the energetic plane. So they get into like the physics of quantum, essentially. And they measure the vibration between the heart and the mind. And they found that actually all of the energy it oscillates from the heart to the brain, but the actual control center is the heart.
I love that. Oh my God, that's amazing. Well, in Chinese medicine, the heart houses the Shen, which is the brain and consciousness.
Yeah.
And the heart is also connected to the uterus, which is interesting how you were talking about how your reproductive energy would kind of flare up and you'd feel anxiety. A lot of times, if the heart is feeling off or it doesn't, there's deficiency or heart chi deficiency, heart blood deficiency, the first things that we're going to experience is anxiety.
Right.
And feeling unsettled.
Right.
So it's just such an interesting correlate, and everything's connected in so many different ways. So
literally, I mean, we talked about that yesterday, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you're reading Sanskrit or whether you're reading, Western medicine, it's all the same.
It is.
Well,
It is. And if you read a lot of just cultures, ancient cultures, a lot of times they'll point towards the same direction of inner peace, treating people kindly, that giving us peace, connection with other people. I mean, we're social beings. We're kind of like parts of a circuit. If we want to be separate, that circuit breaks. And then you don't get the light. Nobody gets the light. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. There's a lot of that in history throughout all these like sages and wise people that have been saying. That's why I'm a big believer in meditation, the subconscious mind and the meditation, because really meditation accesses that part of us, which I call vertical knowledge, which is not necessarily knowledge we get from other people, but it comes as I call it inspired thought. It's like an inspired thought that just kind of comes out. Just like when you said you're looking at a person's name and you'll start to get this inspired thought. You're kind of tuning in with that, the energy of the name. And I also believe, I mean, there's numerology. Names are really powerful.
They are. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other combo too, right? It's so funny because I changed my name, right? Like, so my name is Melanie Garrett, but my author name, my presence in the world is Melanie Legend.
I love that name. I told you I love that name. I was like, that's a great name.
Did that strategically because I wanted to hold a different vibration. And I wanted the person that I was trying to step into be represented by the actual physical numerology and vibration of the name.
That's awesome. Good for you. I actually, my best friend, she also did the same thing numerologically. She had too many, I believe it was like 7s, and she's very spiritual, very connected, but it was almost too connected, meaning not too connected, but she needed more earth. So she changed her name and a couple of letters to make it so that it was more balanced, which is really interesting. But yeah, I remember, and so she'd correct us because we kept calling her the old name.
It's so funny.
It was similar. It was just a couple of like letters different.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll have the ability to essentially recreate
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And people, a lot of times they go to India and they get taught by a guru, and there's a vibration of a holy name, and they're given that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought about that, but I just really didn't think my name Tao would be.
No. But it depends, some people it works. It depends on you and what it feels like for you and how you embody it. But that's very cool. I mean, I love the fact that you infuse spirituality throughout your treating people or working with people. So you do now fertility coaching.
I do. Yeah. So now it's fertility coaching, but like I said, it's kind of all encompassing. And my new kind of program is the Fertility Vault. And the whole premise really behind that was I just wanted everyone to have information in one place.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be more than just the physical side. I wanted it to be more than just the emotional side. I just wanted people to have everything at one place, and then to learn that autonomy. Like, I feel like that's one of the big things that I really preach. It's like, I have a whole bunch of answers, but I want you to feel which one you like.
Yes.
Which one resonates with you. And, I mean, like, some people are going to do great with a heavy metal detox. Other people are going to do great with herbs. Other people are going to do great with more manual hands-on work.
Yeah.
And that's where I want people to have all the resources so that you can then listen to what you think you need.
Yes, absolutely. And I always say too, like, this is always something that I've thought about in general, like many paths lead to the same thing. And we've been saying this for eons. So the same thing happens with healing. There could be a path through diet. There can be a path through spirituality. There could be a path through herbal medicine, meditation, what have you, whatever it is that resonates with you. But what's interesting is, as you were saying that, it's really finding that language that you're connected to. I mean, there's some people that are breatharians. They're able to, and I don't think everybody's made that way. They're able to breathe themselves through life and fast for God knows how long.
Yeah.
Just by knowing how to breathe. But I don't think that it's meant for everybody. All these different paths are not obviously meant for everybody. It's meant to what seems to, just like you said, what draws you, what makes you feel connected. Is it food? For some people, that's their medicine. Totally. And that's what they connect with. And that's what their soul connects with. So it kind of, it checks off the spiritual, the physical, because that's what their soul connects with. And some people just love herbs and they just really connect with herbs and the personalities of herbs. I think they have all souls, all the different herbs, just like people. They have their personalities. They just don't express themselves like us.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other topic too.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, you want to get into plant consciousness?
Oh, totally.
But
yeah, well, I mean, you've read Autobiography of a Yogi? I haven't finished it. I want to read it, but
it's on my bookshelf, and it was given to me by a spiritual leader, and I haven't read it because it's so dense.
You know what? We should make that a book club because we have a lot of time now.
Oh my God, yeah, that's true. I'm in.
Let's do that. It'll be the next thing, and then we'll just do like Instagram lives on it.
Okay.
Well, okay. I did. It's funny because I've read different parts of it throughout, like a long time ago, and I really want to go back and just read it from start to finish. And one thing I do remember about that book, which I thought it's so intriguing. The guy's amazing. I mean, he's just out of this world. I've seen documentaries on him. He was very, very special. And one thing, and mystical too. You can't explain what he's connected to. He's connected to something else, and he was able to heal a lot of people.
Interesting.
With his teachings. And one thing that was really intriguing to me is he spoke in his book or wrote about a guy, I don't know if it was in India, don't quote me on the specifics, but the gist of it was that he tested plants to see if they respond to pain. And it turns out that plants feel pain. And I thought that was very interesting. Because I'm not sure exactly how they discovered it, whether it was like the way the cells reacted or what it was exactly. But it was. It turns out that they studied it and they saw that plants feel pain or they react to pain, which I thought was very interesting.
There's so many. Have you heard of Dr. Emoto?
Is that the one? Wait, yes, I have, but I don't know where to place that.
He's more water consciousness.
Oh, yeah. The crystals.
the influence of emotion on water.
Yes.
But there was, I forget what it was. It was something I read, and it talked about plant consciousness and their ability to interpret emotion, and how emotion could actually change the medicinal constituents of the
Mm-hmm.
herb.
Yes.
Right? Like ones that were raised in a very beautiful environment where others were, put in an industrial facility, and how that actually influenced the medicinal herb.
Yes. Well, shamans, they grow their plants, they connect to their plants
Yeah.
as they're raising them. It's not like this removed thing where you just get whatever you need in a dry packaged form. They actually
Mm-hmm.
thank the plants, they speak to the plants, they connect with the earth. It's
Yeah.
just phenomenal. I just find it so interesting. And yeah, they definitely, there is something to it, I think, that we're not aware of, but the ancients were very much so. And so they actually implemented it into their healing. It's part of it was raising and caring for the plants. Plus, think about people who are really good with plants. Two people could do the same exact thing. They can water it at the same time. They can feed it with plant food, whatever. Put it in the same sunlight, and the plants are going to do different. Some people
100%.
have a different energy, and the
Yeah.
plant dies, or the plant survives and thrives. Another crazy thing is this is an experiment my own daughter did, and I think
Okay.
she should have won this experiment, but she didn't. But I'll tell you what it was anyway, because I found it so intriguing, and I even have pictures I can post.
Cool.
She did an experiment in fifth grade where she took three different plants.
Mm-hmm.
One plant was the control plant. So she would take it in this back room, just like she does all the other plants, and she put the same amount of soil, the same amount of seeds, the same amount of light. Everything was the same with all three.
Okay.
And then she took one plant and she put it in the back room and put classical music on and then put it back. And then the same thing with the other plant. She put it back in the room, put no music on and put it back. And then the third one she put in the back room and put hard rock, like heavy metal,
Yep.
and put it back. So after, I don't remember how much it was, maybe about even 3 weeks, the first one with the classical music grew the most.
Mm-hmm.
The one without the music grew the least.
Okay.
And the one with the heavy metal was the middle, because there was some stimulation and one of them kind of got ignored. So it's interesting, when they get ignored, they do the worst. So that's why people will tend to take negative attention over no attention.
Right.
But the other one was a little bit more soothing. The music was very soothing, and classical music, as we know, has a different effect on, if you look at the crystals, you can go online and see like the healing, what is it? The healing crystals of water, or what is it?
Yeah, he shows the actual like crystallization of the music,
Yeah.
and them is like a snowflake, and then the heavy metal was like completely distorted.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, sorry, you guys, with the heavy metal. My husband loves heavy metal, so, I mean, he does. He loves it, and he's a good guy. He's a beautiful person, but they have everybody has their thing. But I just thought it was so fascinating to actually witness this and see the change. And we did the same exact thing with all of them, as far as the earth, the soil, everything was the same. So it's so interesting.
I love how it's like that whole, the zone of genius is what I've been saying lately, is like everybody has their zone of genius. And like I have a lot of friends that, as you said, are herbalists, and like they're so good at herbal medicine
Mm-hmm.
that that's their zone of genius. Like I can't even, I'm so sorry. There we go.
It sounds
Sorry.
very relaxing, though. It's like a meditative chime.
I wish it was. Yeah, but the zone of genius, like that's what they
I
do
love
really.
that. The zone of genius. That's such a great term.
Yeah, and then it's like everybody has their fit, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like even in my most recent post, I talked about natural medicine, and I was like, ask your natural medicine practitioner or naturopathic doctor about this herb.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the people who messaged me, they were like, well, why would you just put naturopathic doctor and naturopathic professional? And I was like, because that's their zone of genius.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're not going to give information on Western medicine on broken bones because
Right.
that's not our zone of genius. You know
Yes.
what I mean? I'm not going to talk about the best acupuncture point because that's your zone of genius.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? My
Yeah.
zone of genius is what I do, which is herbs or, emotional coaching. And it's just about staying in that realm and
Yes.
allowing everyone to have specialty.
Totally. You know, it's interesting. I had one lady, and I don't know how she took this, but I had my response, and she came in and she said, "Well, my doctor thinks that he told me that I could see you, that I should be good with just seeing you like every other week." And I go, I'm like, "Is your doctor an acupuncturist? Was he trained?" Because sometimes they do also acupuncture and Western
Yeah.
medicine. And she goes, "No," and I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, I don't encroach on their method of protocols. Like, how do they know like what we need to do? And it also depends on person. It was just funny, but it was kind of like that kind of same thing. Yeah.
Totally. And I see a lot of that in the resistance. Like that was one of the biggest things that was the hardest for me leaving Western medicine
Mm-hmm.
was that genuinely all of my colleagues hated me. Like all of a sudden I became this enemy that was
Mm-hmm.
like completely cuckoo and quack and all of that kind of stuff. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
guys, it's not about being right.
Yeah,
Like
it's not. It's
it's
really
about
not.
working together and we're gonna get there and it's gonna be, a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they have their zone of genius, we have our zone of genius. I love that. I'm going to start using that.
I know,
And
right?
yeah, and my husband's a doctor. He works at the emergency room, and I think that they have incredible methods of figuring out what's going on with the technologies out of this world now.
Yeah. And
So
like if I break my bone, if I get in an
you're not
accident,
going to come
I
to me.
no. I need them to put it back together.
No needle's going to help with that.
Yeah.
Except the ones that they have at the Western at the ER.
Exactly. And that's okay.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, exactly. And when I do find some doctors that are so open-minded and so integrative, it's so refreshing. And I think
It,
little by little, it is getting there. I think it's a little bit more of a modern way. It's,
yeah.
the other way I think is more old school, like the old school docs that just like how things were and kind of
Yeah.
keeping it that way. And now there's definitely a new school, but I think we as humans and just the general population is starting to become smarter because, I mean, there's obviously pluses and minuses to the internet, but we're learning a lot because of that.
100%. And
Yeah.
I think that's where the demand's coming from. Like, it's not so much that Western medical doctors want to work with us,
Mm-hmm.
it's that the patient and the consumers are speaking up.
Yes.
And it's almost pushed them in a phase where if you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
so it's almost a push, but a push in a really great direction
Yeah.
because the future is integrated.
Yeah, definitely. But I found too, like a lot of doctors are starting to become like learn more functional medicine. So there is a newer school out there that's
Yeah.
starting to get a little bit more open-minded, which I'm happy when I see. Very happy.
I know.
And it sounds like you formulate a plan intuitively as well. Like for some people, you might find something that's a little bit more working on the mind, and another person you might do hypnosis or
Yes.
spiritual work. So like shifts depending on the patient that's in front of you or the customer or client. It's going to be
Yeah.
patient soon.
I know. I know. But I mean, it's like we talked about this yesterday too, right? Like it's like some people just aren't ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't prescribe something to you or suggest something to you that just I already know you're not going to resonate with, which means
Yeah.
you're not going to do it. And the whole helping is compliance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to
Absolutely.
eat juice over meditation, then I'm going to give you juice,
Yes,
right?
exactly. So, if a person wants to find out more about you, where would they go?
Yeah, so my website is melanielegend.com. I also have my podcast, which is the Get Seriously Fertile podcast, which is every Friday we have episodes. This Friday will be our episode. So if you want to hear Michelle too, you can check that out. And then, yeah, there's my email on there, info@melanielegend.com. And then I'm also on Instagram, which is melanie.legend.
Cool. I'm going to have all that information on the episode notes. so everybody can easily find it. And this is really cool. Melanie and I are going to be doing some Instagram lives. This is probably way in the future because this is in June, but I'm sure we're going to continue doing this because I really connect with you, Melanie. And I'm really happy that you reached out to me. We got to meet. And I wish you the best of luck with school. When are you going to be done?
I have 2 more years. So I've got exams coming up, and then 1 more year of school studies, and then 1 more year of clinical. So it's like residency. And then
you have your hands full.
No.
But you're nice and young, so you got plenty of time.
Oh, thanks. I feel old.
No. Well, to me, you look young. So, so great. Thank you so much for coming on. This is awesome.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for everything that you do. I love that, there's other people spreading this message and having a platform like this. It's just so important. So
yay. So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.